fell asleep and woke up and had a huge breakthrough. I don't know. It was just a big breakthrough for me. Do you mind if I show you, Dean?
Sure.
Here's Dean. Hi, Dean. And here's our little babies. Look at them, aren't they cute? Hi, there's Lily. Yeah, there's a big boy, Mikey, right there, sound asleep. Yeah, he's a good girl. So cute, huh? We're in our hotel room here in Hornell, New York. And I woke, this is when I have major realizations sometimes when I'm sleeping and I wake up. And as I was waking up, I was, it was like I was coming out of a dream state and I didn't, as I came out of my dream, I'm trying to rearrange myself here. These are tall beds. I was, as I was waking up, I was just coming out of this state where I was playing with this little girl who was Kamala. And, I've seen pictures of her when she was a young girl, but just never became conscious until this moment. I'm playing with this young girl. She looks just like Kamala. And as I wake up, and I'm telling Dean about it, and as I'm waking up, I'm seeing her with her mother, and I've seen her mother before in pictures, in photos. And I left California when I was 5 years old. Okay. I am about 6 months younger than Kamala Harris. So she would have been 6 months older. Okay. And I'm thinking that maybe we're like 4 or something like that. Dean, stop yawning so I can talk. So I think we're about 4. I mean, I'm 4 and she's 4.5 or something like that, in that range, like 4 years old or so. I mean, we could have been I'm thinking 4. Now, she came over more than once. And I had a lot of people who came over to see me. I lived in Palo Alto. She came to me, her house. She came to my house, and it was planned. And I could tell she wasn't used to playing with other girls her age or something. Or maybe I was different from other girls her age, and she didn't know how to react to me. And her mother was by her side, like explaining everything to her. We were playing at my house in Palo Alto. It's actually the Zodiac House, that I've talked about on TikTok. If you go to the Truth Heals on TikTok, I talk about the Zodiac House. It's that house. And I'm trying to think what part of the house we were. I believe we were in the living room area. That's where we always received guests, and I would have played with her. And yeah, her mom is right by herself, and yeah, she was like an Indian woman, I would say, just like I've seen in photos. And I just thought it was odd that Kamala, this little girl, and I do know it's Kamala, she didn't know how to. Can you please keep it down, Dean? All right, I'm recording and I'm live. Okay, I know you got to yawn, but we're on camera. Okay. I guess you just want to be part of the live stream, huh? That's your contribution.
I'm giving you sound effects.
Okay, so you're my sound effects department. Okay, so I just thought it was odd. This was a little girl, and she was a little shy, and I don't know if I don't know, what she would say about herself as a little girl. I've never heard her speak about herself as a little girl. I just know I've seen photos of her, and that looks has always caught my interest, because that was the look in her eyes. Like, it was kind of, I don't know, it was kind of she was very young, so it was kind of like she was unsure of herself, and she looked to her mother for reassurance. And I didn't have a parent next to me talking to me. It was just me and Kamala and her mother. And I remember feeling like it was really odd that she didn't know what to think unless she checked with her mother. You know, we were very young, and most young children don't know what to think, you know, unless they check with their mother or father. I don't know. I didn't have anyone telling me what to think or how to react. And so at the time, I thought it was a little strange that she didn't know what to do or say unless you know, and maybe it's because her mother was right there and you know, I was alone, and the people, daddy, you know, was probably there. And because he explained it later. I remember that. And he was off, like in a different, he was in the room, I believe, but sitting on the other side of the room or something like that, observing. But Kamala's mom was right there with Kamala. And I didn't look at daddy. I don't know why, because I knew daddy just wanted me to be myself. And I think he had told me to just be myself. And so I didn't look to him like, what do I do? Or like Kamala was looking to her mother. Um, so I just was uncomfortable because I was just being myself like daddy told me to be. And Kamala didn't know how to act unless she checked with her mother. And I got the impression that her mother was, you know, I don't want to say domineering or anything, but she was very interested in the development of her daughter. You know, she was a scientist, I understand, you know, she was in academics, and you know, she wanted her daughter to be all that she could be. And later on, after they went home, and every time it was like a few times she came over, daddy would explain to me, you know, I'd ask him then, like, why doesn't, you know, why do I make her feel so uncomfortable? What's the problem? You know, why doesn't she know what to say to me? And he would explain that, you know, her mother was very interested in her, you know, becoming like president of the United States, or she had big plans for her daughter, and she was trying to guide her every movement and, you know, every moment of the way. And they knew, you know, the parents knew how important it was for her to interact with me, and that her mother probably wanted to help guide her through the experience, since it was a very important experience for her to have, because her mother had plans for her in the future, and I was going to be part of those plans. This is what how daddy explained it, or to that effect. I mean, I'm maybe not using his exact words, but I just know that Kamala was a highly sensitive child, like I was, and she wasn't as sure of herself like I was, because she was not in her own home. She had never met me before. And perhaps her mother had told her about me, and maybe that was kind of nerve-wracking to come and meet this child that, you know, her mother very much wanted her to interact with and get to know, and for the future. And, you know, maybe there was a lot of pressure, and she was very nervous about the situation. I know I was more confident. I mean, you know, it's funny because I was a highly sensitive, very shy little girl too. And so sensitive that my own mother kept me in nursery school for 2 years in a row, because she was so worried about me and the other kids. You know, I wasn't used to interacting with kids my age. I was used to interacting with adults who came over to my house, and you know, and that was that was a problem when I went to school, because I didn't know how to interact with other kids. Now, I did have kid friends, mind you. It was just a group of kids. It was scary to me. And I was smaller than the other kids because I was a little younger. You know, I was born in October, so I was either going to be a little older or a little younger than all the kids. And my mother, who was a school teacher, or used to be before I was born, she was concerned that I'd be pushed around by the kids, and she decided she wanted me to have the slight advantage, being slightly older rather than slightly younger. And she had me go to 2 years of of nursery school. And that's how I got to know a friend, you know, my mother was best friends with somebody in Palo Alto, and she had a little girl who was slightly younger than me. And this little girl ended up in my nursery school class uh, because my mother kept me in nursery school 2 years in a row. And I don't remember her before that time, even though I did play with her a couple of times. But we ended up to be such best friends because we were both too scared to jump off the diving board. It was a tall diving board, and all the kids, would jump off of it. But she and I, no, we were not going to jump off the high board. And as a result, at the end of the school year, every kid got 2 fish. Every kid except for me and this little girl I was best friends with, we got only one big fish because everybody got one big fish and one little baby fish. It was like a little thing, I don't know, it was like a tag that kind of was like our little I don't know, prize or badge, you know, to say that we had completed the school year, we had completed our swimming uh, instruction, and everybody got a big fish and a little fish, but my best friend and I, we got just one big fish, no little fish, because we wouldn't jump off the diving board. I think that's terrible. I mean, nowadays, they would never do that to a little child because it really hurt my feelings. I remember thinking, well, thanks a lot. I mean, I'm just really sensitive. I don't like heights. I think they once pushed me off the high dive, and I was so afraid that I was going to die. And I mean, a little girl, off a high dive, like forcing little kids to jump off the high dive. Now, there were lots of kids who just couldn't wait to jump off the high dive. I was not one of those kids, and neither was my best friend. And, by the way, that best friend ended up to be was my half sister. And, I used to pretend I was twins with her because I was a twin who was separated from my twin sister. She and I looked a lot alike, and we didn't know we were related, but we were half sisters. Well, I don't know if you could call us half sisters genetically, but, we had the same father, who was daddy, because he had an affair with her mother, and she conceived her. And anyway, so that's the story of me and my best friend in Palo Alto. So, I was a highly sensitive child who was very shy. I'm just trying to explain that. And Kamala, she was a similar little girl who did a lot of thinking and was highly sensitive and shy. And that's a sign of intelligence. I want everyone to know. And and she had never been to, she was in an unfamiliar environment at my house. It was just me, but somehow I made her nervous, and I felt bad about that. And that's why I had to talk to Daddy after they left to feel better, because I'm like, why am I making her so nervous? Why is she scared of me? Why does her mother have to explain everything to her? And I think Daddy might have explained that she was, maybe her mother made her feel like she was under a lot of pressure, and because this was a really big deal for them to come down to my house. Why are you sighing, Dean? Why are you sighing? What you think is this like a boring story and I'm repeating myself? What? Be honest. What?
Going downhill.
It's going downhill. My story. It's going downhill. Why? What is so horrible about my story about Kamala? What? Why are you shaking your head?
The more you tell it, worse it gets.
The worse it gets, the more I tell. What is so horrible about my story, Dean? What gets worse? What? It's just so sad that what I went through. What are you saying? What are you saying?
It wasn't your fault. It was her fault.
What? You're so sad. I mean, you think it's a terrible story about what my interactions with Kamala Harris?
I think that's what he was calling your trouble. It was her mood swings or whatever she had.
Whose mood swings? Kamala Harris's?
Yeah.
She was a young child, Dean.
Well, kids can have mood swings too.
Okay, but I don't think she had mood swings. She was just a very shy child. and that's a sign of intelligence, okay? And yeah, I was maybe, I don't know, I was very shy too, and but I was at my in my house, and I know when I went into other people's houses, I just clammed up and was quiet too, but I didn't have a parent to tell me what to do or think at all times. It seems like Kamala grew up with a mother who deeply cared and was there every moment to guide her daughter, and she was a very fortunate, child to grow up with that. Um, it was almost though when she came over to my house, it was like I was playing, like her mother was operating through Kamala to play with me. It was like I was playing with her mother, like her mother was operating through Kamala to play together with me. It was kind of funny like that. And um, yeah, so I had totally forgotten all about this. I didn't remember this when I voted for Kamala. I just remember when I first saw Kamala on the world stage, I was taken by all of her ambition, and I was a little concerned about that at first. I felt like, I really hope she's not this person. Um, in terms of working together with her, I'm I'm still highly sensitive, and women. I'm highly sensitive to domineering women. My mother was a domineering woman who was not back in, my early childhood. My mother was like out. She was like she had an alcohol and, drug problem back in those days. And that's, why daddy was always there for me. And that was daddy's choice because he wanted to raise his daughter himself and not have to, you know, deal with my mother. And, she was always drugged out somewhere. I mean, I don't even remember where my mother was when Kamala and her mother came over. It was most likely that my mother was sleeping. I don't even remember what time of
Or,
day. Huh?
passed out somewhere.
It really might have been that she was passed out, yeah. But, daddy was always there. And, yeah. I don't know where my father was, Dennis Elliott. Um, I really don't. Maybe they weren't home. It's very possible because they weren't there at all. It was just daddy and me. Daddy spent, he was the one who raised me in my early childhood. Nobody else did. I mean, the Zodiac killer, who was Dennis Elliott, he had me help him write his letters, and of course I wrote them in my handwriting.
Oh,
I know. Why you signing? I know it's
a
sad.
college-educated person has to have a child write notes for them.
I know that's
That's
that.
sad. That's
Well, that
real
was
sad.
encouraged by daddy.
Yeah.
Daddy got my father to, well, first of all, okay, I know I'm kind of veering off and talking about other subject matter here, but it's important for the world to know. It was planned for my father to be the Zodiac killer, okay? I mean, my father didn't dream that up himself. I don't think he had the ability to be that creative. Um, Daddy put him up to it. Okay, my father, Dennis Wayne Elliott, was under contract. He was a hitman for the CIA. He had successfully killed off Marilyn Monroe before I was ever born. He was gonna he actually went out with her or tried to go out with her and was her drug dealer, and he was gonna try and save her. She had a price on her head, and he was gonna try and save her if she married him, but she refused to marry him. He was some 21-year-old weird guy with glasses. She had no interest. She was Marilyn Monroe. She just wanted her cocaine. And so he delivered her cocaine with anthrax in it. And she died, okay? Not that that's funny, okay? I'm just saying this is the ridiculous, this is what's so horrible about my life. It's just ridiculous, okay? And he got credit for that. He got paid for that. People wanted her dead. Martin Luther King Jr. And by the way, Marilyn is my sister, and she is the genetic birth mother of my mother, who is her genetic daughter, my mother Ann Elliott, who is, Marilyn was my genetic sister, who my grandma Flanagan gave birth to. She was the firstborn twin, who was born, and then my Uncle Dick Flanagan, was the second born twin, I'm pretty sure. And she didn't want a girl. She didn't want to raise a girl. My grandma was sexually abused and didn't want to deal with a daughter being sexually abused like she had been. And she gave up the girl for adoption. She did not want to raise any girl in this world. And so it was just Uncle Dick who was my uncle. And of course, we know that Marilyn was shipped off to Los Angeles, and she secretly gave birth to my mother in 1939. And, she was implanted with her. My mother, it's complicated, genetically speaking. And then my mother was born an orphan, and Orphan Annie. Okay, that's where it comes from, in Los Angeles, and on February 17, 1939. Supposedly, she was born on my grandmother's birthday, and my grandmother at that time was 39 years old. She turned 39 that year, and her husband, my grandpa Flanagan, they lived here in Wellsville, New York, which is like about a half hour away from Hornell, where I am right now. And, my grandpa Flanagan was ill. He had an ulcer that he was always getting surgery for, and nothing would get better for him. And they could hardly afford all the medical bills. He couldn't work, and she had to work as a secretary to make extra money, and they couldn't afford all their medical bills. And somebody had told them that if they adopted my mother, who they were told was a relative of my grandpa's, that they would get a lot of money, or at least get a good chunk of change so they can catch up with their bills and survive. And they didn't have a choice, and they had to take this daughter in, this girl, little baby, newborn girl in. And, my grandma, that was the last thing my grandma wanted to do, but she didn't have a choice, okay? If, they didn't have any money at the time. They were totally depleted. So she took this little girl in, and, my mother grew up, and my mother and my grandma never got along. It was horrible. And when my grandpa finally died, my mother was 13 years old, and she says that she became an alcoholic at age 12. That's her story. My family drank a lot, and my grandma, everybody did. And my mother would raid the liquor cabinet, and she became an alcoholic at age 12. Anyway, I know this is totally off topic, but I figure I'll just throw it in. Okay, this is all important, and I'm in this land, the land of my ancestors. I know Hornell is a little down the road, but it's a very similar place. And I remember, it was just today that I remembered Daddy saying that he preferred Hornell, New York. I had forgotten that until I'm here. He preferred Hornell, New York. He thought he liked this town better than Wellsville. But Wellsville had a cuter name, Wellsville. And that's why, when he and my mother co-wrote, um, um, what is it? What's the name of that character in the Dr. Seuss? What is it? The Grinch. My mother and him created the Grinch, because the Grinch is my mother. And that's how she was with me. I was little, it was Whoville, right? And there was little, what was the little girl's name? That little toddler, cute blonde girl. I forget her name. I forget the name, but you know who I mean. If you look up Dr. Seuss and the Grinch, there's little Susie, was it? I don't know. Little Susie who? That's me. Okay, Daddy. This was before I was ever born, of course, but he had my mother help him write this, because she really had that Grinch. She was a monster inside. He knew this, and he wanted to bring out the Grinch, and she helped co-wrote the Grinch, and who stole Christmas from little Susie Q, or whatever her name was. That was me, her future daughter, her future firstborn daughter, Claire. And I was a little blonde girl like that, when I was the Gerber baby and the Coppertone girl, that's not public information. They have these, you know, these corporate propaganda stories, that they tell instead. But that was me, okay. And the artist was a very young Gary Murray, before he was ever a Buddhist, leader, SGI leader, all that. He didn't even chant. He was just a young kid. He was probably like 15 years old or something like that. Anyway, so that was the little girl that Kamala played with, the copper tone girl. I was two when I was sketched for the copper tone girl. I had just received my puppy, my black puppy Curry, for my second birthday. So I was a little over 2 years old in that drawing. And Curry, she was a black sheepdog poodle mix. She was not a cocker spaniel. Daddy told Gary to make Curry a cocker spaniel, and you know, Gary had a big smile on his face as he transformed our little puppy into a cocker spaniel. Me pulling down, and we had to pull down my pants, and I was posing for that, and yeah, Gary thought that was really hot. And I mean, he was thinking of the future. Daddy explained to me later, because I was really upset. I felt like maybe I was being violated by Gary, because he was so excited as he drew me as the copper tone girl with her pants pulled down. And I was really concerned. And Daddy had to explain to me after he left that no, he's just thinking of all possibilities in the future. And as an artist, that's all the attention such a drawing will create. And don't worry, he wasn't violating you, Claire. I remember I had to make sure, I had to check it out with Daddy to know if he was violating me, because yeah, I was highly sensitive to that, and obviously I had been so horribly violated again and again. But I was always like under, taken advantage of, like, given drugs and things. So but here I was totally straight and nobody was giving me drugs, and I was totally aware, and I was worried that he was violating me. And Daddy had to explain, no, he's just a young artist who's thinking of all the future attention he will get with this drawing of me as the copper tone girl. And I really appreciated Daddy explaining that to me, because I was a little worried. Anyway, so I've gone all over and gone into a lot of different people in this short presentation. I guess it's approaching 30 minutes now. But I had to quickly create a live from New York. It's Queen Elizabeth, not Queen Elizabeth, Queen Claire Elizabeth. That's my legal queen name. Daddy and I came up with that together. Daddy thought that Queen Claire wasn't as good as Queen Claire Elizabeth, because Queen Elizabeth was my genetic sister, another genetic grandmother. King George the Third is, that dictator that was King George the Third. I was, that was another genetic father of mine. I have many genetic fathers. This is why I own all the royal bloodlines. And, I was born in line, and, in the direct lineage, unlike Donald Trump, who my family never knew until he started coming over to RAPD. Oh, wait, no, RAPD, me, okay, when I was 12 years old or so. So, and more than once, I believe, I don't know how many times, at least, it was a couple times at least that I can remember when I lived in Princeton, New Jersey, and it was at the beginning of my 7th grade year, and that would have been in 1977. And I'm thinking like September, October, before I turned 13. I was 12. And maybe it was before, it was at the very beginning of my school year. So it would have been just before I turned 13. I was 12 years old. I believe that's when it happened. It did not happen at the beginning of sixth grade. It happened at the beginning of seventh grade, if I'm not mistaken. I went to John Witherspoon Middle School in Princeton, New Jersey. Okay, so there's a lot of information packed here. I'm sure my father, my husband, and by the way, he is my genetic father too. I mean, it's kind of weird. Dean is sighing because I mentioned King George III. He also is a child of King George III. But I am also a child of King George the Fourth, who was his son, and King George the Fifth, who was the first king who abdicated the throne because he wanted or did marry or well wanted to marry his girlfriend. Her last name was Simpson, right? Wallace Simpson, something like that.
Divorced.
She was divorced, and so in those
That
days
was
that was illegal. Nowadays, I mean, Harry, married Meghan, and she was divorced, but it was the Queen changed their protocols, I guess, and allowed him to do that. But boy, did that. I guess a lot of people think that was in error. I don't know. I think everybody should marry the person they love, and I think those are silly rules and regulations. Yeah, I packed a lot of stuff in this half an hour presentation. It's a little over half an hour now, so I guess I don't have much more to say. Do you think I need to add anything, Dean?
I think you get on there then.
Um, yeah. So I used to play together with Kamala Harris, and I'm thinking, what year would it have been? We were like around 4, I think, and that would have been. I left California in 1971 when I was 5, so it must have been 1970. And look up her birthday. She's 6 months older than me. I'm born October 21st, 1965. And yeah, so it was planned since she was a child for her to become president of the United States. And I was always told that I was going to be president of the United States when I was a little girl. Everybody told me that, but I don't know. They told me different things at different times. And so it's kind of confusing, when you're given different information at different times in your childhood, it's very confusing. I mean, maybe things changed and they changed their mind. I don't know. I really don't know why they gave me different conflicting information. I really don't know why. Maybe it's a memory experiment, because I'm a savant and they want to see what I remember and when I remember it and what I remember, all that stuff. I don't know, but I just know now since I went, it's about right now. I've been talking for a little over a half an hour, and right now it is 17 p.m. here in Hornell, New York, where I'm recording this. And I was dead asleep at 6:30. Before 6:30, maybe a little after 6. That's when I woke up with these brand new, fresh memories from my subconscious mind that have been pushed up into my consciousness for the first time. I've never had memories of Kamala until just now in my homeland. I mean, my ancestors' homeland. I can't say it's my homeland. I just came here once,
Soon to
twice
be
a year.
our homeland.
Okay, well, don't speak about that. Okay, and yeah, we used to come here. Well, I'm talking about Wellsville, which is down the road about a half an hour. We used to come here, like I said, we averaged twice a year. Sometimes it was 3 times a year. Sometimes it was there were a couple years when it was just once a year in the summer. But most of the time, as I've explained, we came at least for either Thanksgiving or Christmas. And I think well, we like to have Christmas at our house. So I think we ended up coming for Thanksgiving more often than we did for Christmas. And then we'd come during the summer, and it was usually for about a month. And so every year I used to play on the streets of Wellsville with the kids, and we played. My brother and I considered it like hide and seek in the dark, but they had another term for it. It was called monsters. They would play monsters. They called it monsters. Uh, let's play monsters. And I would be like, oh, you mean hide and seek, in the dark? Yeah, and it was always at night, and we'd play till late into the night. In Wellsville, it was like a very small town. All the kids played in the middle of the night. It was really fun. And my brother and I loved that because at home we didn't get to do that. But it was, the summertime, and that's what the kids here in Wellsville always did. And everybody was safe. And that's why my mother didn't mind that we were out till like 10, 11 o'clock at night playing monsters in the dark on the street with the other kids. It was just the culture in those days. I don't know if it still is the culture, but it was back then in the 70s. It was a great time. It was like Norman Rockwell territory, and I guess it still kind of is. I just know it really was a special time, in the 70s here. It was like the Norman Rockwell paintings.
Oh,
All right, you're groaning. What's going on? What do you say?
I didn't
Why?
like it in the 70s.
What? You didn't like the 70s?
I
Dean did not have as good a childhood that I am describing. I mean, my childhood was nothing to write home about. Believe me, I was tortured, but I was safe when I came to Wellsville, and that's why I love this place. I mean, my father, it was hands off me at Grandma's house. My father didn't dare to do anything to me or violate me in any way at Grandma's house. My grandma, my father would never have wanted to get on Grandma's bad side. I was safe at Grandma's house. It was the only it was the only time when I was a real child, was at Grandma's here at look at these cute little dogs. Look at these cute little doggies. Sound asleep. Yes, the babies.
They have this-
So
they have this-
cute.
They have this catch this fish fry.
Yeah, I'm talking about you, Lily. Um, anyway, covered a lot in this little live. I hope somebody enjoys it. I don't think anyone is watching live, but it's jam packed. I hope somebody enjoys it someday soon. All right, so signing out live from New York. It's Queen Claire Elizabeth. I was gonna say Queen Elizabeth again. Isn't that terrible? Thanks for watching. Have a good one.